The Plein Air Easton Podcast is brought to you by the Avalon Foundation, enriching the lives of those on the Eastern Shore of Maryland through the arts. Visit avalonfoundation.org for details on events, performances, and educational programming offered throughout the year. This episode is sponsored by Paint Out West, a virtual painting workshop conducted by Chris Kolupski. Paint along with Chris throughout October from the comfort of your own home. Visit chriskolupski.com to sign up. That's ChrisKolupski.com.
Zufar, you blow my mind. You're so stinking smart. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
This better have something to do with painting.
Thank you.
My goodness.
I just love it. I love it. Man, we just had like a mind-blowing conversation with truly, and I know you feel like I say this all the time, but this is an artist that I really love and have deep respect for. You know, I've got some of his paintings because I just absolutely adore and think he is so wildly talented. But one of our former Artist Choice winners, just a phenomenal guy, Zufar Bikbov. He's been in Plein Air Easton since 2013, every single year. There was only one year he didn't win an award, and man, he is an interesting and incredibly smart guy.
Yeah, like I said, I walked away from, just being inspired to, do better in anything I do.
Yeah, the one he talks a lot about his upbringing and his time in Russia, and most specifically his time being a doctor. And the one really huge quote that he said that should be the title of this podcast is, he said, "There are just no limits in art or science." And he's just really thinking about all of that stuff. He called himself learning hungry. Be sure to listen closely. He's got a lot of smart things to say.
He's got a lot to say. I think the arts and science comparison was really, really interesting, like you brought up. This is Plein Air Easton Podcast. Please give your attention to Zufar Bikbov. All righty, everyone. Welcome back to the Plein Air Easton Podcast. Jess, I think this is episode maybe
1 million.
1 million and 8, 9, 10. We are here today. I'm here with Jessica Bellis. As always, my name is Tim Wagon, and we are here today with artist Zufar Bikbov. Zufar is in Maine now, but I believe you are from Connecticut. Zufar, welcome very much to the program. Thanks for talking to us.
Happy to say hi to all of you, to excellent team of Avalon, Tim, Jess, and Nick, who's behind the camera. It was just a couple of weeks, 3 weeks since we finished Plein Air Easton. Time goes so fast.
It's been crazy. We just started talking to Zufar, and I was like, okay, you are in Easton, which everybody knows is a grueling, 10-day stretch in the heat. And then he left and went straight to Door County, which is another really intense, highly regarded. Well, and let's back it up. Zufar has been at Plein Air Easton every year since 2013.
2013. Yeah.
And is this true? Is there only 1 year that you did not win a major award while you were here? Yes.
Yes, I think that's true.
So, Zufar is a big deal. So then he leaves us after winning the best maritime painting this year and an award at Quick Draw too, I think, right? Or Small Painting Sunday? Quick Draw. Quick Draw. And then he leaves us and he goes to Door County, which is another major festival. And you won an award there too, right?
Yes, I got there second place.
That is just so incredible. And then he went straight from Door to Maine, where he's also been painting, and now maybe he's vacationing a little bit. Is that kind of a mixed work and pleasure?
To make that bridge between competition, or that competitive feeling of competitiveness, I painted for a couple of days in leisure situation with artists in Nanata group. And that's right on the coast. And then after that, I made that smooth transition just to vacation time, which is on Long Lake in Maine.
Awesome. A well-deserved vacation after a lot of painting all in a row. Zufar, we like to just start off at the very beginning and ask, have you been painting since you were a little boy? I know that your dad has been very influential in your sort of art history and bringing up. Can you speak a little bit about the beginnings?
Interestingly, we just recently had a talk with just among artists once all competition pressure was relieved. Last day in Door County, we've been sitting and speaking about first memories about painting. And I remember and realized a long time ago, now I just recalled it, that one of my first painting or drawing, I would say, I've been proud of, and which was kind of noticed as a good one, was a nocturne in Russia, which is latitude-wise, it's much northern than any part of the United States except of Alaska, I would say.
So it's dark there a lot, is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, street scene and street lights, and like my mother brings me home, we had to walk, and those reflections, like in winter snow, which sparkles, was very magical. So I drew that on black paper with purple, yellow, whatever, lighter color pencils. And my parents also said, like, Zufar, definitely look at this drawing, has a talent. Whenever he has a chance to start art education, we would encourage you to later, so you would consider him to have some art education. And that was nocturne. Then I came back to nocturne, but I was in medical school, and we may probably talk about that a little later. And I was coming back from my hospital, like, during the night. And since it was in the big city of Kazan, home city of Nicolai Fechin, known for many artists here in the United States, again, street light, especially in late fall when it's rainy, cold, it really was some kind of uplifting for me. So I painted oil painting with a nocturne. And then it looks like all this nocturne stories started and came to my painting and brought me so many awards.
Yeah, no, you're certainly known for your nocturnes. When you think about that drawing that you did on the black paper, how old were you at that time, do you think?
That was before school. I was 5 or 6. I don't have that drawing yet, but I quite clearly remember because there was a conversation about that, and I probably could recreate it.
I love it. And but you feel like your parents identified even then that maybe you had a special talent and that they sort of supported you in that all the while.
Yes, I would say my father, his will when he was in school, actually during the Second World War and early after that, in like late 1940s, he was willing to become an artist, but it's a family story. I think I wrote that on my website and on bio. I do not remember. Do I have a shorter version or longer version there now? He was willing. He was admitted to art school, but since my grandfather was, it was still during Stalin time. He was a political prisoner, so my dad couldn't get the scholarship. And to survive, to live like in town, rent place to stay, oil paints and so on. So he couldn't really financially sustain without scholarship. So he came back. But country Stalin died, and a few years later, and my dad became engineer. Country needed engineer, so they really didn't care about that fact in biography of the family. And so my dad, he was definitely was interested, and he had talent, I think genetically predisposed to that. When I had a chance to go to art school, plus a few episodes when it obviously was the fact that I can draw and paint good enough and better maybe than others, like average students. So we took first chance at the age of 9, and I went to a youth art school, which is quite serious education, I should say. It's not just like weekly 1 hour lesson. No, it's
do you have
4
to get
times a week.
Do you have to get chosen for that? You do, right?
I had entry exams, yes. So not everyone was accepted. That's true.
And when you say it's quite serious at 9 years old, could you explain that a little bit, Zufar?
It was academic education. It was not a fun time. Of course, kids, so there should be some element of fun. But we've been drawing and painting. There was a lesson of specifically drawing, composition, painting, then sculpture and wood carving and art history for 5 years, 4 times a week. I don't remember 5. I think it was 4 times a week because I also did sports and I also did the radio technical stuff. So I was trying to manage time well enough to be able to do a lot. So in 5 years, 4 times a week, and every day it's 3 hours approximately, 3 academic hours. You can count. In a week it was 15 to 20 hours for 5 years. It was all
That's a phenomenal.
year long.
That is a phenomenal amount of arts education for somebody who is 9 or 10, 11, 12 years old. I mean, that is a lot of intense training really early on.
Plein Air was actually also part of it when children in regular school had to go to the volunteer work and other things. So we, in art school, had our own kind of practice and work, and we did Plein Air. So for a few weeks, and that's probably was my beginning of real interest and preparedness for Plein Air Easton.
That's just amazing.
And somewhere in here, for those who are new to the story, like myself, there must be a big twist because you became a medical doctor in all. Is that what? Where's the twist?
Yes, I think it's that the situation in the country. In 1991, when I graduated from high school, that year I submitted my documents to medical school and School of Architecture as just in case. The thing is, in Russia, if you did not get entered to higher education, like college, you go to serve in army. It was like
the military.
no choice, unless, of course, you cannot for medical reasons. And in 1991, it's a year when Soviet Union fell apart. And before that, for a few years, country was trying to do reforms and this and that. We decided that art could be a hobby. And if I wanted to become my profession, I can switch to it later, which happened, in fact. And if I were not accepted to medical school, I would be in a School of Architecture, where I was accepted to, one of the best in our area. And then, of course, architects, they also get kind of art education. It's creativity plus technical skill, and they have watercolor classes, drawing classes.
But you didn't make that choice.
No,
like you didn't choose, like you could have gone that way, but then you chose to take the path to become a doctor instead. Because you felt called to do it?
No, biology, chemistry. I graduated from high school with valedictorian, as they call it here, with golden medal. And so I had a lot of choices where to go. And I thought, I still feel that medical education and all those years which I spent working in the hospital were not a waste of time. It's really shaped me as I am, shaped my character, shaped my the way how I look at the life, health, relationships with other people, death, what's dying. So I really have very few phobias, and definitely I know that
living a life out there, boy.
It's just unbelievable, Zufar. Like, it's just such an unbelievable story.
You living like Tom Brady out there.
Can you speak to that a little bit more about how the experiences in medical school and then actually practicing in the hospital or through your residency shaped the way you viewed life? I mean, I think that's really interesting.
So it's medical education is part science, but science admits that it still have a lot to learn about. That's actually important for philosophical view of where the human is within all system of the world, what we see around, and where we try to reach, we're looking to the sky, science plus psychology. So you need to communicate to people, unless you go to just to clear research or work in whatever lab and so on. But of course, I chose specialty when I had to work with people. I finished residency in surgery, and it was, I would say, emotionally difficult because we did a lot of surgeries for advanced cancer patients. So the life cycle, I mean, when you're in medical field, you see the whole life cycle from birth through young. I mean, even though the young people have less diseases, but the problem with them is quite often trauma. So kids fall from somewhere, more adults start driving, they get into that kind of difficulties. And then, of course, regular many diseases in medicine, which you learn in medical school, and then surgery, and then all life cycle to dying. There are a lot of ethical things which you need to do when people are dying, communication to families. I mean, it's the span of what you need to learn to be a good doctor and what skills you need to learn is huge. So you need to have great memory, have good customer service, if we can call it this way,
Sure.
to be able to find the way to people. I mean, they would trust you, because when you treat someone, it's a teamwork most of the time. And if a person really fond in doctor, really trust, it's known that the treatment goes better. Yes.
Right.
Was drawing required as a doctor? I mean, did you ever draw a picture?
That steady hand in doing surgery, I think, probably came in handy.
Yes, good drawing skills. Quite often, even the position which you hold the scalpel in your hand, sometimes called like I do not know it will be correct translation to English or not, but like as you called pen, or if you hold it like different position, it's almost the same as a brush. You can hold it one way or another way, like a spoon or like a fork or like a knife. So it translates from surgery to art to oil painting and backwards. I chose surgery because I think it's a lot of manual thing. Plus, you need to have a good understanding of depth, see things two-dimensionally, even looking at the body, knowing where exactly spleen or the liver or stomach, because you do diagnostically before you send person to have a CAT scan or something, you'll get as much information as possible. So they said that before, even though we have every year better and better machines, but they could be, you should respect what machine finds, but you should not take your head off in in front of machine. You always know that it's machine, and what you learn just like during physical exam with the doctor, that really augments both together. You should not just rely on whatever, have a test result, that's the diagnosis.
When you were in that medical space, working at the hospital, going to medical school, how often were you painting? Did it become something that you didn't have the time or capacity to really engage in, or was it always a part of your sort of daily or weekly existence?
In medical school, we had to draw. They really insisted, even though we have, of course, books, but when you draw, especially what you can see through, like under the microscope. So when you draw somehow, for people, especially with a visual memory, you would remember better shapes, let's say, of cells typical for that condition or for this condition. If you drew, let's say, cell in some disease which has several nuclei, if you look at it, read about it, it might be not enough. If you drew it, you actively get involved. It's all later again. Can you imagine
Zufar's professor like looking at his drawings after all of that intensive art school training versus like all the other doctors' drawings? Right. Like I can just imagine like how perfect and beautiful your drawings must have been versus some of your neighbors. He's not going to brag about it, but I'm sure it's true.
Yes, I guess so. I did not compare to others because we still had to submit our drawings, especially from the class of histology, which is a microscopic tissue structure things normal and in pathological condition. We've been submitting our kind of drawing pads, sketch pads, to show that we really learned it. That's I do not know, it doesn't exist here in medical schools. But answering to your question, yes, my drawing skills, especially drawing skills, really became a big thing in learning medicine.
So how did you find your way to the United States?
Actually, one of the professors from Yale University who was reading lectures, he's Dr. Sadiq, he is infectious disease specialist. He always promoted the idea that good doctor cannot just read from morning till night just medical books, things about researches, effectiveness of medication, and just practicing. Good doctor needs to do arts as well. It could be anything, writing, dancing, maybe playing musical instruments, and of course painting. And we met in my medical school where I was already faculty, because we had art exhibit, doctors paint and doctors draw. So then that exhibit from medical school was also shown in one of the central museums in city of Kazan. So this way how we met, and then there was a spot in surgery and oncology for exchange program with Yale University. And by then, exchange program already existed between my medical school and medical school of medicine in Yale. So I came once, I came second time, and third time was when I decided to relocate. And I still was considering if I become a doctor here or not to become a doctor here.
And what time frame is this, Zufar?
That was happening between 2000 and 2003.
Got it.
Okay.
So a while ago, over about 20 years ago, and I took exams. I still find that the medical science, it's so interesting. So I read all books, took exams, was certified. I could go to residency here. But that happened, I think, at about the time when I was ready to go to residency, when my art career grew with help of actually Plein Air Easton as well. I became more known. I started traveling from coast to coast.
No, I feel like when you first started here at Plein Air Easton, you were still engaged in that residency, weren't you? You had you really let go of all of that?
Yes, at that time I was preparing for exams. I think I took my first step of United States medical licensing examination. And then also art, first year could not support me. And luckily I had RN degree from Russia as well. It's just part of our medical education in Russia. We can start working as RN if you need some extra financial support. Let's say you have a family.
Got it. You can go in and be a nurse. Yeah,
yes.
You can just do it.
And here to take nursing exams was for me easy. I just sat for a month. I read, applied, then I got verification, and I got a RN license. Once I got, the first exam, first certificate, and then approved a degree. And then I started working as a nurse. And I could not travel a lot first year, talking about 2013. It was
right, and that's your first year, and that's your first year at Plein Air Easton. So I think that we're going to take a little break, Zufar,
okay.
And when we come back, I want to talk about that first year of Plein Air Easton and sort of the explosion of your art career from that point forward. Sound good?
Sounds great.
And just we are speaking with Zufar Bikbov, a plein air artist and Plein Air Easton veteran. This is the Plein Air Easton Podcast. Just a little caveat to Zufar, the story of coming here the very first time. I remember seeing him for the first time, and his dad, who has been instrumental in all of this, was in Easton, standing right behind him, watching him paint for 3 days straight, and it was really, really wonderful to meet you that way, and your father as well. So we're going to take a break now. Another little tidbit is we're going to take a break and hear a message from Paint Out West, which is this initiative and project, week-long project, plein air painting expedition, virtually, if you will, by a gentleman named Chris Kolupski, and he was really excited about this episode in particular because Zufar Bikbov is one of his inspirations, and he loves his work. We'll be right back in just a minute.
On Friday, October 1st, 2021, when the sun rises upon the Colorado National Monument, have your paint set up and ready to go for the first session of Paint Out West, a virtual painting workshop conducted by Chris Kolupski. Stream this multi-class event from the comfort of your own studio as Chris demonstrates plein air painting from the Colorado National Monument, Arches National Park, Canyonlands, Zion, and Monument Valley. Chris will explain each step of his process and include magnified views of his color mixing and brush application. You can paint along with him in real time or replay classes later and pause to practice. Afterward, send a photo of your work and receive critique. This is a one-of-a-kind opportunity for you to paint the great American West without the cost of travel and lodging. Spots are limited, so don't miss out. Visit chriskolupski.com to register. That's CHRISKOLUPSKI.com to register.
Welcome back to Plein Air Easton Podcast. This is Tim. I'm here with Jess and speaking with artist, plein air painter Zufar Bikbov. Thank you to Paint Out West. Please check them out online at Chris's website. Jess, we've got Zufar in the country.
I know. I love it. And it's 2013, and it's his first year at Plein Air Easton. Were you just totally overwhelmed? Like, was it your first big painting competition?
Yes, that was my second competition. Again, by then I was working full-time in the hospital as a special assignment team RN and getting ready for exams. It took a lot of time. I don't think that it was waste of time, never think like that, but I was busy. And in 2012 was my first multi-day paint out event, and that was on Finger Lakes. I won the grant award. That was first year. And I was staying in a room, like our housing was like in dorm of the university or college. And these two guys told me, like, there is a great event happening in the country, which is called Plein Air Easton. And that was happening in May of 2012. And I said, well, sure. So you were both in there. I would like to follow your advice. Can I apply? They said, no. Application, it's a big serious event. Application happens like half a year before event. So apply for next year. I applied for next year. I was glad and happy to be invited, selected. And this is how I came first time to Plein Air Easton in 2013. And during the same time, in July, we had my dad visiting us. And I requested, can I come with my dad? And that was very nice that you said, yes, you can. And you found that host who been able to accommodate two people, me and my dad. And I knew that it will be the best gift I can give to him. Because, when you're almost 80, the monetary or things do not really much important. Much more important are good memories, and also working and seeing how artists work, how they communicate, how they celebrate. And this is all what the Plein Air Easton and many other good events in the country are about.
Well, Zufar, I think you just made us both cry, so thank you for that.
No, I remember your dad painted. I remember your dad painted at Quick Draw. I remember it just like all so very clearly. One thing that I remember that you said to me, and I don't remember the exact same words, but Zufar always has this just very kind, steady persona about him, and he always comes with an air of like humble gratitude. And I remember at the very end of that first year, you said to me that you had a great time and that you thought you understood Plein Air Easton now. And, you know, in that first year, I think for a lot of artists, it is very overwhelming, and there are a lot of pieces and nuances. And the next year, you came back and won the grand prize, right? Or was it artist choice?
Well, that was artist choice. We consider it as
which
one
is
of
like
two
the
grand
which
prizes.
I think it is kind of like the grand prize. But it just was so like funny to me. And there have been a few other painters that over time, after their first year, have had like similar conversations with me where they're like, "Oh, I kind of get this now," and have come back and just had grand success afterwards. So Zufar is one of those people.
Well, I mean, I'd like to know why you said that, Zufar, but I want to also ask, just talk about the richness. This is in the strictly painting or directly at painting, but the richness of your colors. Your colors always seem so deep and like, you know, just almost deeper than real, or not deeper than real life, but very rich. And I wondered, when you talked about your where you came from and your part of Russia, did you pick that up from anybody, or is that just something that you love?
I think a school of art, I mean, the way how they teach, of course, it's different school to school, but overall, the standards are the same. So Russia then through Soviet time preserved that school of realism. And you could see that the northern schools, like in St. Petersburg, where they have very few sunny days, is like mainly based on gray colors. And that school, which was formed and artists painted in Crimea and like other southern parts of the country during Soviet time and now as well, they use paints brighter. I still learn, and I know even like within those past 8 years, my painting approach kind of one way or another way is changes. Of course, the foundation drawing, it's a fundamental. I don't think my drawing gets better, but my painting color mixes become more complex, and I continue studying the way how Russian school teaches and how American school and approach also teaches. I would say I didn't take any classes here or the workshops, but we talk a lot, of course, and having plein air events, festivals, you have opportunities, especially at the end, to talk, to discuss our works, to discuss works of other artists, where it was and how we painted. And I think I'm just getting deeper to a Russian school of how to present color. I try to paint not with exaggerated vibrancy of color, but to use full strength of paint at the same time to maintain same balance what we see there. So if it's gray, it will be complex gray, which will be done with several shades. If it's blue, it's not just plain blue. So Russia, I think, approach was kind of juxtaposed to calligraphy. So artists been artists, and they never tried to create paintings which would be easier to put this to books. So that is why books quite often do not reflect a real impression which painting gives. And visiting museums is very important. I'm so sad that there is no much of the Russian realistic paintings exist in museums. Like Metropolitan doesn't have it. Many other, like Philadelphia, Los Angeles, through the country, they don't.
Why is that, Zufar?
I think at that time we didn't have a lot of artists who've been selling like art across the border. There were few rich people who've been buying Russian art specific for museums in Russia. And then during the Soviet time, it was really difficult to go across the border or sell outside of Russia. There were several reasons why Russian art didn't come across the border. And then in 1990s, when political restraints and everything were released, many art influx happened to the United States, but they stay in private collections. I hope there will be few big collectors who have a lot of art, Russian art, and they will just give it to big museum so many people could see that art.
Well, it's very interesting because the parallel between what you're saying and the actually theater world is totally opposite, because at that time in 1919, 1920, that was when Konstantin Stanislavski's method, along with Richard Boleslavsky, his instructor, came over, and everything since that time in the theater world is based on concepts and theories developed in Russia. Now, it has splintered off and done whatever, but theater is the exact opposite of that. So that's kind of interesting that happened at the same time, and I don't know. It's kind of just an interesting little fact. Go ahead. I
think between 1910, maybe before the World War I, and maybe 1930s, there was a lot of experiments in art that was happening in theater. Of course, Russia went through a big experiment of trying to build different type of society. And art actually was no much of realism. It was more of a, when you change something, you need the propaganda, you need a lot of posters, and art became flat. At that time, more interest to flat type of painting, and calligraphy actually became more popular. I would say in Russia, not so much of great art was produced between 1910 and 1930, and even 40 because of war. Again, big demand for posters to overcome, to go through war and so on. But starting 1950s, there was a kind of, again, renaissance in Russian Soviet art. A lot of lyrical paintings, landscapes showed up, and many great artists actually flourished from 1950 through late 70s, I would say.
That's just so interesting. Now, these days, you are a professional full-time artist, and you do a whole lot of plein air events. Talk to me about how much work you do in the studio, too. What percentage of your time do you spend in the field versus in your studio at home?
I try to spend outside as much as possible, because there is no limit of what you can learn from painting outside. It's like science, there is no limit in biological science. We go deeper and deeper, learn about cells, atoms, and still we open new worlds. I don't think it will be at any point boring. So weather permitting, I go and paint a few days a week. And then my studio work is actually it's like continuation. I rarely start my work in studio based on my photographs. I'd rather do a lot of plein air studies, keep myself, my arms, my eye, my brain, heart, moving, having that momentum. And when I paint in studio, that's usually finishing or taking my study to larger scale and painting that. So I would say I try to maintain 1-to-1 ratio on my outside painting to studio painting. If weather is good, if it's summer, it's more painting outside. If it's, of course, rain, wind, hurricane, I sit in studio, and it could be locked there for a long time. But with the COVID-19, going outside and painting, at least if we are not in New York City or a big city, we had the freedom to leave houses or paint in our garden backyard. That was great. I think painting in backyard is still considered outdoor painting.
Absolutely it is. And teaching other artists has become a piece of what you do too. I know. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yes, I love teaching. I should open here a little secret where love to teaching is coming. Actually, medical field, that brought me interest in teaching. It's all design of knowledge, which you have to learn from your mentors or from your resident or attending doctor. And then you need to pass it to students, to intern. It depends which position you're at. And I think the teaching is very important social role. If you know something better than others and you know how to deliver it, take that responsibility, start teaching. And of course, for those critical years of like what we had 2008, 2009, and so on, interest to buying art was diminished, but people still wish to take classes. I really enjoy teaching. I really enjoy teaching, again, not only in art. When I take some shifts to work in the hospital, I really teach patients as well, because I know if a person comes and you fix little issue with them, but the lifestyle is wrong, you have to speak and explain things like, if you change this and this and this, you may possibly get rid of these and these problems. So I try to think like about the future, about health first, and then about the art. I try to create sort of system and start a couple of the projects. So like one here, Rusera, if you can read it on my
I like
chest.
it. I like it.
That's the gallery and academy project. And teaching Russian art has interest on comparison and on special interest. Maybe using that brand, if it exists, like Russian art, it's everyone heard the Russian ballet, Russian painting school, Russian whatever, mathematics.
Moscow Art Theater.
Yes. They teach differently. It may be beneficial. Maybe that's the way how I can learn. Many students think this way. And I try to be honest with students. I teach them as much as I can. It doesn't matter how much my course costs. If it can cost twice more if I do that through Lime Academy or I do it from studio, I will teach for using all 100% of time I have with these students. I really love smaller groups because I see better results teaching them.
Right. Well, and how, you are also somebody who has always embraced technology, and, you are certainly always the one ready with the camera, using social media, doing podcasts and doing, you're not somebody who steers away from interactions like this. Can you speak to the role of that in your career and your success?
Maybe my respect to technology, not again saying that all depends on technology, but technology can be a very useful tool, again, for teaching. In recent years, we can see that that's really important. It's come again from medical field, when you have camera to see and you do surgery more efficiently or with less trauma to patients, it's a big thing. You just need to understand when this works and when it doesn't. And same thing with a painting. If I paint and I can do a recording of my painting and give this video to watch to my students, it could be great preparation. I really treasure money and time people invest in studying. If they come to my workshop and let's say I teach them 3 days, they did fly, they spend money for this and that, have high expectations. I want them to learn more. If before their travel, they can get a video for me or take extra course. I will provide them sometimes for a very low price or for free. But the end result is I'm a result-oriented person. At the end of that workshop, which they took from me, they are better artists at the end. I'll be happy. I want my students to finish education with me faster, I don't want to make it like a very long, money pumping machine. I just give them like little piece by piece and make it very long way, which will be just kind of transferring money from their pockets to my pocket. No, I hate that type of thing. And I hate when things like this happen in medical field. We're not really trying to treat you to the end. If it's limit of the medical knowledge, I understand that. But if I can make study or anything else in my life more efficient, I just feel I'm more honest to these people. I'm honest to the way how this world is created. I don't want to lie to anyone.
What would be your advice to somebody who finds themselves in a creative rut or somewhere, like whether it relates to painting or any kind of art? Like, have you ever found yourself in a place where you feel uninspired, or you go to paint and you're just not really feeling it? What do you do?
I think quite often it depends on scale which you look at this scenery. It's a lot depends on what experience you had. If you had a painful experience, like for years you paint and really nothing happens, or you do not see improvement, and maybe your teacher doesn't really encourage you to see, this study, it may look not great, but let's see what you made better here. And that could be true. That really, yes, colors better. Maybe edges are not great. Maybe you didn't put the right details. Maybe the scale is wrong. But if you got better colors and values from outdoor painting session, that could be not very well seen positive progress. So when the place is not inspiring, I would just try to see, maybe I'm just looking wrong direction. Maybe I'm looking to the vast picture and it just doesn't get good composition. I think pretty much any day you can go and find, if day is not sunny, colors are not great, let's practice gray colors. Let's practice find some spot which has those subtle interactions. Maybe that rock could be a nice exercise. Yes, I think it's always good weather unless you physically cannot be outside, or
right, the hurricane you brought up, not a good idea, right?
Yes. I would try. I would probably another advice would be to try to be part of the group and find those who really have experience in teaching. Maybe you can feel it that this person really can explain how to choose subject to paint and draw. If it sounds familiar, practice, and that happens, try to get as much knowledge as possible. Of course, you need to be learning hungry to have a progress. And of course, live person-to-person interaction during live classes and painting together is very important. I really believe that the hybrid education is a great thing. When you use technology, when you cannot for any reasons, you just have to watch video. But once you have a chance to work with real people, go and paint. Doesn't have to be expensive, of course. It could be just your local art group.
And Zufar, for as thorough as your background is and as knowledgeable as you are about a lot of things, both from med school to painting, when you decided to move your career towards being a professional painter, when you got to the painting world, did anything surprise you?
No, that was a decision not of one day. It took several years to be full-time artist or not. I very respect medical field. I just thought that painting is a lifelong experience. One important point for me to become full-time artist was actually technology. Technology being able to reach people and have my teaching more efficient, find fans or people who would like to learn from me from across the country and sometimes across the world. That said, if I don't sell my art, I still can teach. And I think that's important role, and I can make a living with that. And also, now I'm at that point when I would like to paint more for like museum level paintings. I have requests from in the United States and in Russia as well. So I need to focus on producing art with some thought, story, larger scale paintings, many paintings, not selling my best paintings unless I have to, like if it's competition. And then teaching really will help me to survive. So I wouldn't say that I switched from medical field to art and then I got disappointed with something or pleasantly surprised. No, I really was considering to do that or not to do for a long time. Everything goes as I was planning.
Do you see yourself scaling back from competition? Like when you're talking about some of your new aspirations and your new intentions and the time that will require, or the discipline in terms of holding on to your best pieces? You know, the festival environment really doesn't make a lot of space for that, does it?
It's just different type of thing. It's like, let's say if you like hiking and then like you hike in New England. I live in New England. And then somebody tells you, let's go and do something like more advanced. So get ready for that. And let's travel once a year to different mountains, Himalaya or Kilimanjaro. I would do that because that prepares you to look at your career differently, put you to different circumstances, and still makes you a stronger artist. I think plein air competitions have a lot of beneficial things, and everyone knows that communicating, getting in touch so closely, suffering heat, and painting fast as you can. It's just those events you learn more about yourself. When you constantly every day just do things in studio, sometimes you lose that excitement. And Plein Air Easton definitely adds that excitement to my career.
Zufar, this has just been so terrific.
Yeah, it sounds like Plein Air Easton may be part of your life for a while longer, too.
We certainly hope so. We certainly hope so.
Yes. And I'm glad I live not like across the country, 5 hours, and I'm in Easton. I would like to come more often to Easton.
Yeah, we would love to see you more often in Easton. You should make yourself more present. Zufar, this has just been such a great conversation. We so appreciate you and all of the beauty and art that you have brought to our community, and I so respect that you are making an effort to share your talents and educate others so that they can learn to paint and share their talents too. This has just been a really great conversation.
Yeah, Zufar, it's been great to get to know you. We typically see each other during that week, and you are, as you say, very busy. And
so wait, what are the 3 things you're going to do while you're actually on vacation?
I would like to continue learning jet skiing. Yes,
nice. I like it.
2 years ago, I tried first time, and I've been able to stand, which is difficult. Not everyone gets from first shot. I would like to practice more. Second, that's not the order of importance. Just first thing which came to my mind.
It's not ranked. Not ranked. That's fine.
I would like to, of course, have great time with my family and with my friends whom we stay together, and they're great people. Our friends, and of course, my family is great people for me. And you met, I think, most of them, my wife and my both daughters.
Yep.
And the third thing, it's still a new place. I do not come to Maine so often. I would like to feel that the Maine became part of my life. It's like more of something like metaphysical, maybe. I'd like maybe to learn exciting story about it, maybe about people who work here or used to work here on a regular thing, or maybe, I don't know, history of battles. I would feel that my time being here, it wasn't just pleasure. I have story I would like to maybe tell in my paintings about Maine. So that's about my vacation in Maine.
See, he can't stop working.
Yeah,
his brain is so smart that he can't stop. You can never stop. That's what I think the answer is there. Zufar, it was so great talking to you. I'm sure we'll be back in touch. Thank you so much for your time and for everything, for being such a great advocate for Plein Air Easton. We just really appreciate you. I hope you feel our love.
I feel it, and my pleasure. What I can say to your works of thanks. I know that Avalon every year surprised me how many things which you do are caring about community, caring about artists, and those changes under different circumstances which we go through make so much sense for my quite scientific mind. So I feel about Easton what I was trying to say about Maine. So Easton became part of my life, and I have already now kind of feeling July is coming, or maybe other time. I feel like I have a magnet in my heart, which brings me to Easton. And Easton is on the other side of that interaction. Thank you. I love it. Big part of it are people, and big part of that, main part of it, is your great team. You're just like my people. I love you all. Thank you.
Zufar, you're just terrific. Thank you so much. We're grateful.
We have been speaking with Zufar Bikbov, artist, among other things, on the Plein Air Easton Podcast.
Man, what a great guy!
Yeah, I mean, I'm inspired after this interview. Really, I really appreciate it.
That's great.
Thanks, Zufar. Go back to your vacation. Tell your family hello from us, okay?
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is producer of the show, Nick Richards, here to give you a little tease of our upcoming episode where Tim and Jess sit down and talk with Stephen Haynes about a cool new project he's working on, kind of trippy, dives into artificial intelligence and deepfakes, and his exploration of that through his art and painting. Here's a little snippet. Make sure you tune in 2 weeks from now for our conversation with him.
The way that this works, to my simple mind, is that it takes a large library of images, of portrait images from places like Flickr, and feeds them into a machine learning algorithm that dissects them and then builds a kind of active repository that can then generate these new unique images. I found this absolutely fascinating, and I started thinking, what is my relationship with computer graphics? Like, I worked on a computer building stuff for 15 years, right? And I always had this philosophical thought of, if I build something on the computer and my hard drive crashes, does the thing actually exist? There's no tangible proof for it, right? And then there's larger philosophical questions about, do our lives exist if we don't make it known to other individuals, right? That gets way deep. But on an image making footing, this thought of, how does my relationship with this new program, this new machine learning algorithm, how does that take place? And as a person, as a plein air painter, right, I respond to outside imagery and then translate it in my own expressive way. So I thought, well, what if I painted these portraits that are being generated on this website?
The Plein Air Easton Podcast is brought to you by the Avalon Foundation, enriching the lives of those on the Eastern Shore of Maryland through the arts. Visit avalonfoundation.org for details on events, performances, and educational programming offered throughout the year. The Plein Air Easton Podcast is produced by Nick Richards. Our theme music was generously provided by Blue Dot Sessions, with additional episode music by Scott Gratton. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. You can learn more about Plein Air Easton at pleinaireaston.com.